Come on in, take your seats. We have lots left. Some at the front. You're welcome to come up here, as long as you don't throw anything at our panelists. Okay. I think we're ready to go. Good afternoon. My name's Stephen Rosenborough. I'm on the Board of Transportation. Hasn't this been a wonderful, wonderful session? I've been so impressed with the people on the panels. And they're incredible people that the team was able to bring here, and to get their opinion, be able to talk to them after. It's just quite remarkable, the level of transportation knowledge that we've gathered here to look at the future. And I think the same applies today in our session. We have two. I'm familiar with the two women. I have to apologize to the man. But we have two people who are very engaged in community involvement in their communities to a tremendous level. So I think that you'll have a really good opportunity. Please ask questions. We're here. They want to ask questions, or if you need them after. Our moderator today is Jamel Robbins. Jamel, please.
Thank you for kicking us off today, Mr. Rosenberg. Hi, I'm Jamel Robbins. I'm the Public Involvement, Community Studies, and Visualization Group Leader at the North Carolina Department of Transportation. And I'm thrilled to have you here today for our session, Trusted Routes, the Value of Stakeholder and Community Engagement. Now, today's session is designed to be more laid back, more conversational. Think of it more like a talk show. I am a little disappointed in our setup here. I was hoping we'd have more of an open space, but that didn't work out. So you'll hear from our panelists, but we also want to hear from you, right? So this is going to be more of an interactive session, and so there will be points that I will open it up for Q&A. We also have an interactive portion, two interactive portions. Given the time, if we make the time, we'll have two interactive portions for you guys to participate. But we feel like all of this feedback, your insights, the questions can really help us all professionally and maybe even personally in some cases, and also benefit our organizations. So we realize stakeholder and community engagement is an area where we all stand to improve. So we hope today's discussion is not only a challenge for you, but also foster meaningful engagement and discussion, so that, again, our eyes might be open to some new ideas. So we brought together today a dynamic panel representing the private sector, specifically aviation in this case, local government, and regional planning leadership. And with this diversity comes a wide range of perspectives on what engagement looks like. and who it's for. So in the public sector, we often talk about engaging citizens, people who have rights, responsibilities, and a stake in the public good. In the private sector, the focus is often on customers, and so those who choose to engage based on value and experience. While those roles are different, both demand trust, clarity, and intentionality. And that contrast, citizen versus customer, is one of the reasons I'm excited about today's conversation and our discussion. Our panelists bring insights from both worlds, and I think you'll find that there will be overlaps as well as differences that will spark some meaningful ideas. But before we meet our panel, let's talk about what to expect out of this session. Again, I told you this would be an interactive session, not a series of presentations. Audience participation is encouraged. And again, we'll have two interactive portions of the session. So we want to keep things dynamic. So now I'd like to ask each of our panelists to introduce themselves and tell us, well, we'll just start with the introductions first. Lisa, we'll start with you. Thank you all. Very excited for this panel. So whether you're in the public sector or private sector, one thing is clear: stakeholder and community engagement has evolved and dramatically over the years. More and more organizations are recognizing the importance of involving stakeholders early and often throughout their projects. It's no longer a box to check. It's a strategy for success, because done well, stakeholder engagement fosters innovation and it minimizes risk and builds trust needed for long-term momentum. And I've seen this firsthand at NCDOT. When I first got here, I felt a lot of our project teams and engineers just saw it as, again, a box to check, something I just needed to do so I can get through and get this project delivered. And it's really changed. I've seen a lot of teams these days really look to do more than what is needed in some cases, but that's a good thing. But it's just been almost a sea change in how we view public engagement. But while we've seen a lot of major progress, it hasn't come without a few hard lessons. And one of the biggest is outside of funding, the most common reason projects get delayed or derailed is public controversy. It's not engineering, it's not policy, it's public trust. And that's why we're here today to talk about how we can engage more meaningfully, more strategically, and more consistently across all sectors. And so let's start by unpacking one of the key distinctions we just touched on, the idea of engaging citizens versus engaging customers. And so for those of you in the public sector, how does responsibility to engage everyone, regardless of interest or agreement, shape your strategy? And for Tracy in the private sector, where engagement often hinges on satisfaction, loyalty, and policy alignment, how do you approach building trust and responsiveness with your stakeholders and or customers? Anybody else want to tackle that question? Bo, let's target a question towards you. How and why do you think stakeholder engagement and community engagement has evolved? Yeah, that's good. Tracy, how does your organization approach stakeholder engagement? balance. It's a clear balance. Looking at the time, we'll move to our first interactive portion or moment. So, if you have your phones, please, can everybody see the QR code? So, this first question is going to be around what are the greatest barriers to engagement? The code is 917-14268. Yeah, let's, hold on, let me lift the TV up. Let's give a few more seconds there. But what you'll see, were you able to get in? No. It's about to pop up now. I guess we can. All right, so the question should have popped up now. And so you'll be able to select from logistical challenges, such as poor timing of public meetings, inaccessible locations, communication barriers, such as language, cultural differences, resource limitations, so insufficient budgets to do outreach, social barriers like public disinterest, fear of retribution. Sometimes neighbors don't want to go against their neighbors, even though they disagree in public, or even just the feeling that their input doesn't matter. And then, of course, we have a blank slate where we have other. So if you have something that you think is not in one of those four categories, let us know. So we'll give it about 20 to 30 seconds. So let's see a tie. All right, so the top two are resource limitations and social barriers. Pretty interesting. Does any of this surprise you guys? It's, yeah, I know. That's resource limitations and followed by social barriers are the top two. What are your thoughts on that? Mm-hmm. you have any strategies based on what we saw, strategies to overcome? Do any of these align with the challenges you see in your work? Yeah, I know. I was expecting we'd have a bigger screen, though. I didn't want to table there either.
Don't wait until you already have the bad news. If you know bad news is coming, go and meet with them. Have to prepare them, get their input. They'll become advocates for you instead of enemies. That's very important.
You said one more time. We're going to move to the second portion of the session. And I want to start with what I have here is a hot take round, and I'm going to pose one question to each one of our panelists for a quick answer. Lisa, I'll start with you. True or false? Public meetings by themselves today are outdated. Tracy, this question is for you. What's one thing your sector does better than others when it comes to engagement? Mm-hmm. Bo, final question. Complete, complete this sentence. The biggest myth about stakeholder engagement is yes. Yeah, yeah. PowerPoint, I got you. So let's turn our conversation to one of the foundations of successful engagement, and that's trust. I think we've been touching on that. It's come up a few times. And I think most of us would agree that building and maintaining trust among stakeholders and the public is one of the most important things that we can do. And so what are the best strategies for sustaining trust with our stakeholders? I'll just throw this out there, and whoever wants to take it, how do you build and maintain trust with your stakeholders? Mm-hmm. is great using just a long runway. I like that. I like it. I like it. I like it. Hopefully everybody understands what NIMBY is. I know it's been said a few times. I think a lot of us in this room know, but it makes me think about other acronyms. So NIMBY is not in my backyard. Those folks that just don't want anything, no impacts to their property. Then you have the paves, and that's citizens against virtually everything. So we deal with those. We have our bananas, right? Those that build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything. So there's a lot of acronyms out there for the people that we engage with all the time. So one thing that we always share our successes, right, in our projects. But I think we all, in professionally and in life, learn a lot more from our mistakes than we do our successes. So, anybody want to share a mistake that you learned a lot from and how it may have reshaped your approach? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's right. another question to the audience and get you guys involved. And I'm going to pose this question to you guys. What's a lesson learned from past engagement efforts? What's a lesson you've learned from past engagement efforts? Pat Ivy? Anybody? Oh, yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Those people are what we call a LARC, local area resource contact. We love our acronyms in transportation. We all know that, right? So, yeah, we like to identify those early, especially with underserved communities because they already have the trust of the community. So when we reach out, Sean's sitting over there. We had a project in Cornelius that really went off the rails, and we found a LARC for a community. They were able to set up small group meetings. We were able to get the project on track, and we got it built under construction. So, I mean, they had pitchforks at us for the first time we went out. So, and then we ended up with a standing ovation, right? But working through a LARC changed everything, right? So, it's a good example. Dr. Hummer. Right. I'm all about visualization, so the 3D models are important. Those, right. That was an award-winning project. Um, I was still to this day been unprecedented the amount of public engagement on the Business 40 project. So, one more. All right. That's right. People want to be heard, right? I can talk about this stuff all day. I mean, I know we have a time limit, and so now we're at the second and last interactive portion of today's session. And this will be a word cloud. And so the question is, what's the best way to maintain trust when a stakeholder's input can't be reflected in the final outcome? And you should have multiple, you should have 3 boxes to provide input. It's hard to see the light. Understanding, acknowledgement, explain the why, listening, consistency. You need to request a bigger screen next time. Empathy and communicate seems to be the larger and transparency. We'll leave it up to the panelists or the audience. Anybody want to say anything? Transparent communication. I always start with the why. Could be painful sometimes, but it's better to tell the truth. Oh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Secondary benefit, yeah. Well, I find that a lot. At least, at least when we first go out, I think one of the things that sometimes project teams, not as much now, but in the past, we knew something was going to be controversial, and we keep pushing up, from going out, and I'm like, what are we hiding from? Part of the process is for the public to vent. It could be because of a past project. It could have been years in the past, but that's what they remembered of DOT and their projects, right? And so we have to allow them to vent, right? It may have been during the old design it, defend it days, right? And so we're out here to listen, but also to educate people on not only the the project, but also our processes and procedures, and set those expectations for the outreach to come, right? And so the venting is just a normal, that has to happen, right? Once they vent, now we can sit down and talk with less emotion, right? And I've seen that. I mean, again, the example, so when I tell you they had pitchforks, I mean, I believe I saw one. I don't know, but but that turned around, and that was a classic case of the public having to vent, and I mean, they vented. And we were able to walk out of there, and then we came back and through subsequent public meetings, we ended up with made major design changes, but something that worked, and they were appreciative, and we again walked out with a standing ovation, and that is just testament to learning or just accepting, take our lumps in the beginning, right? Because they're not mad at us, they're mad at who we represent or the past. So, let's go to some final takeaways, looking at time. I would ask each panelist to share one key mindset or action shift for improving engagement going forward. questions for our panelists from the audience? Dr. Hummer? No question? Well, I'll take this one. So the, what we do is we have a community studies group, and at a very high level, they look at the demographics of an area, right? So we have a project study area, so we know what the makeup of those communities are. Are there limited English proficient communities? You know, what resources are out there? And so that information helps guide our initial public involvement strategy. We also talk to the locals try to learn about as much about the past that can help us in that initial strategy. But any public involvement plan is a living document. It will change. We may get out there, the Sierra Club might show up that we didn't expect. Well, we may have to shift gears a little bit. So, but that's where we start. And then you talk about metrics. I believe that was and I think there's a lot of different ways to look at metrics, right? How many people came to the meeting? But these days, you have to look at your online engagement, right? More people are going online to get the information than come to our public meetings. Typically, those coming to the public meeting have an axe to grind, or they're probably not all the way on board with the project, or sometimes we're just the best show in town, right? But we may have a project that 50 people came to a public meeting, but the web page had 2,000 views, right? And so to me, that's a measure of success, right? Because we had 2,000 views, that means the awareness is up. And that's all we can do, get the information out there. And maybe 100 people provided feedback on through the online portal. Overall, that tells me that's a successful project, that we have more people in favor of that project than not. So I think we can read into a lot of different factors that can give us those measures of effectiveness. NCDOT was part of the national, we were one of 5 DOTs on the NCHRP study on the measuring of effectiveness, and we're still working on that. Nobody has that figured out yet, but we are looking to automate survey, post-outreach survey that can help us with that too. But anybody else? Any other questions? Jim? think we're going to give you back 15 minutes of your day. But thank you guys so much for a wonderful session. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Rosenberg.
Mel, thank you. One story about engagement. We were in a city on the outskirts of Charlotte. We went to a public meeting. There were 450 people there. I turned to my engineer and told him, do you realize there's only 2 of us in this room that support this project? It was the truth. But we won the vote 6-1. And the reason was we'd spent months beforehand meeting with council, explaining the project, and fitting in with their master plan. Had we not done that, we would have left the meeting and been tarred, feathered, and hung. But it didn't work out that way because of the groundwork. I'm very encouraged today that we have private sector and public sector. I think it's so important that the public engagement happen on both sides. You know, we at DOT have an extensive public engagement team. But you really have to get in with the people, understand the people. And I think you've really had good takeaways today. These are very experienced people, a wonderful panel. Listen to what they've said. Take it away. Use it to benefit yourself. That's what we're here for today, to improve your communication level, to improve your projects so you can win with the public winning with you. We've got a little time before the next sessions at 3:30. Don't forget at 5 o'clock we have a wonderful cocktail reception down in the area where we're showing all of our vendor things. Thank you for coming. We'll see you at 5.